the temperature had fallen so low that even the horses struggled to breathe as 38-year-old Cowboy Ethan Cole guided his covered wagon through the frozen Colorado wilderness. He had been riding for nearly 2 hours through a blinding snowstorm when he saw something moving beside the road. At first he thought it was a wounded animal. Then his lantern caught the figure of a woman standing in the snow, holding a tiny baby against her chest. 2 children clung desperately to her coat, one boy of about 8 and a little girl barely 5. Their clothes were soaked, their faces pale from cold, and none of them had enough strength left to walk much farther. Ethan pulled the reins hard and jumped down from the wagon. The woman lifted one trembling hand. "Please," she whispered. Ethan looked at the 3 children and immediately understood that they had been walking for hours. He didn't ask who they were or where they came from. He simply opened the wagon door, stepped aside, and said, "All 4 of you, get in." If you want to know why this mysterious woman was running through the wilderness with 3 children, and why the people chasing them would eventually force Ethan to make the hardest decision of his life, stay with this story until the very end. And if you enjoy emotional Western stories filled with courage, family, danger, and unexpected second chances, please like this video and subscribe to Meaningful Impact 2.1 for more unforgettable stories. The woman stared at Ethan as though she had not understood him. "You don't know us," she whispered. Ethan nodded. "I don't need to." He lifted the 8-year-old boy into the wagon first. The boy was trembling so badly that his teeth clicked together. Then came the little girl, who refused to release her mother's hand. Finally, Ethan helped the woman climb inside with the baby. The infant was unusually quiet, wrapped in a thin blanket that was already stiff from the cold. Ethan immediately covered all 4 with his heavy buffalo robe. "What's your name?" he asked. The woman hesitated. "Anna." Ethan noticed she was watching the road behind them. Her voice dropped. "Anna Mercer." The name meant nothing to him, but the fear in her eyes did. Ethan climbed onto the driver's seat and turned the horses toward his ranch. Behind him the children remained silent. The boy eventually whispered, "Mister, are you going to take us to the sheriff?" Ethan looked through the small opening in the wagon curtain. "No," the boy looked surprised. "Why?" Ethan replied, "Because right now you need a warm bed more than you need a courtroom." The little girl finally spoke. "My name is Rose." She held her mother's sleeve. "And that's my brother Thomas." Ethan smiled faintly. "Nice to meet you, Rose and Thomas." When they reached the ranch, Ethan carried the baby inside and placed him near the fireplace. Anna immediately began apologizing. "We won't stay long." Ethan turned toward her. "You're staying until everyone can stand without shaking." Anna looked down. "We can't pay you." Ethan shook his head. "I didn't ask for money." While Ethan prepared food, Thomas sat near the fire. He's staring at the steaming bowl as though he had forgotten what a hot meal looked like. Rose carefully held her baby brother while Anna ate only a few spoonfuls. Ethan noticed. "Eat." Anna shook her head. "The children first." Ethan placed another bowl in front of her. "They're eating, now you are too." For the first time, Anna's eyes filled with tears, but Ethan noticed something else. Her coat had been torn near the shoulder, and beneath it was a fresh bruise. Thomas had one too. Rose kept glancing at the door every time the horses moved outside. "Who are you running from?" Ethan asked. Anna froze, then she looked at her children. "My husband." Ethan's expression hardened. "Where is he?" "He's dead." The answer came too quickly. Ethan didn't press her. Later that night, after the children had fallen asleep, Anna finally told him part of the truth. Her husband, Silas Mercer, had owned a small ranch several miles south. He had died in what everyone called a riding accident. After his death, a wealthy landowner named Victor Hale appeared with papers claiming the Mercer property belonged to him. Anna refused to sign them. 2 days later, men came to the house. They said if I didn't leave, my children would disappear. Ethan stared into the fire. "Why didn't you go to the sheriff?" Anna's voice broke. "Because the sheriff works for Hale." Before Ethan could answer, 3 slow knocks came from the front door. Everyone went silent. Ethan reached for his revolver. Another knock, then a man's voice came through the wood. "Mrs. Mercer, we know you're in there." Anna's face went white. Thomas pulled Rose closer. Ethan stepped toward the door. The voice continued. "Hand over the woman and the children, and nobody gets hurt." Ethan looked back at Anna, then at the 3 frightened children. He quietly blew out the lamp. The cabin went dark, and the first gunshot shattered the window. Ethan immediately moved Anna and the children away from the windows. "Stay low," he whispered. Another shot struck the cabin wall. Thomas covered Rose's ears while Anna held the baby tightly. Ethan crawled toward the rear door and looked outside. 4 riders surrounded the cabin. Their leader was a tall man, wearing a black hat and long wool coat. Ethan recognized him from the description Anna had given, Victor Hale. Ethan knew there was no chance of simply riding away. The storm had buried the trail, and the horses were exhausted. So he did something the attackers didn't expect. He opened the front door and shouted, "Hale!" The shooting stopped. Victor stepped forward. "Where is Anna?" Ethan stood in the doorway. "You're standing on my land." Victor laughed. "You have no idea what you're involved in." Ethan answered, "You know exactly what I'm involved in. 4 people came to my door freezing and hungry. I gave them shelter. That's where this ends." Victor's smile disappeared. "You think you're a hero?" Ethan replied, "I just know a bully when I see one." Victor ordered his men forward. Ethan slammed the door and moved quickly. He knew the cabin couldn't withstand a prolonged attack, so he led everyone through a hidden passage beneath the kitchen floor. Years earlier, his father had built the passage as an emergency escape route during Indian raids. It opened near the old horse barn. They reached the barn just as the attackers entered the cabin. Ethan loaded Anna, the children, and the baby into his second wagon. But before he could leave, one of Hale's men appeared. Ethan tackled him into the snow. The two struggled fiercely beside the barn. Ethan managed to disarm the man, but another attacker came running from behind. Anna saw him first. "Ethan!" She grabbed a wooden lantern pole and knocked the man's weapon from his hand. Ethan looked at her in surprise. Anna stared back. "You told me to protect my children." The fight became chaotic. Horses kicked snow into the air as Ethan and Anna worked together to keep the attackers away from the wagon. Thomas helped Rose climb inside while the baby cried for the first time. Then Victor Hale appeared with a rifle. "Enough." Everyone froze. Victor pointed the weapon toward Ethan. Anna stepped forward. "Don't." Victor smiled. "You should have signed those papers." Anna's eyes hardened. "My husband didn't die in an accident." Victor's expression changed. Ethan looked at her. Anna continued, Silas discovered you were forging land deeds. He kept proof." Victor suddenly looked toward the wagon. That was the moment Ethan understood. The documents weren't in the cabin, they were with the children. Thomas reached inside his coat and pulled out a small leather notebook. "My father gave me this," he said. Victor's face turned furious. He charged toward the boy. Ethan intercepted him. The 2 men crashed into the snow. Victor was heavier, but Ethan fought with the desperation of a man, protecting a family that had become his responsibility. The struggle rolled toward the frozen creek. Victor slipped near the edge and dropped his weapon. Ethan had the chance to walk away. Instead, he pulled Victor back from the dangerous edge and held him until the sheriff arrived. But this sheriff wasn't Hale's man. Anna had secretly sent Thomas with the notebook to a neighboring town before they fled. The real territorial marshal had been investigating Hale for months. When he arrived, the evidence in the notebook finally connected Hale to the forged deeds, threats, and Silas Mercer's death. Victor Hale was arrested. Weeks later, spring began to melt the snow around Ethan's ranch. Anna rebuilt her life slowly. Helped Ethan repair fences. Rose followed Ethan everywhere, asking endless questions about horses. The baby, little Samuel, finally began smiling whenever Ethan entered the room. One evening, Anna stood on the porch watching the children play. "You saved us," she said. Ethan shook his head. "No, you kept them alive long enough to reach someone who could help." Anna smiled. "And what happens now?" Ethan looked toward the children. "I suppose that depends on whether you and the children want to stay." Anna's eyes filled with tears. Thomas ran onto the porch. "Are we really staying?" Ethan smiled. "If you want to." Rose wrapped both arms around Ethan's leg. "We want to." Everyone laughed. Months later, the old wagon that had carried them through the storm sat beside the ranch house. Ethan had repaired it, and painted the family name across the side, Mercer Coal Ranch. Anna stood beside him while the children played in the grass. "You know," she said softly, "that night you told all 4 of us to get in the wagon." Ethan smiled. "I remember. I thought you were just saving us from the cold." Ethan looked at the children. Sometimes you think you're opening a wagon door." He paused. "And you don't realize you're opening the door to a whole new life." Anna smiled. The children ran toward them as the evening sun disappeared behind the mountains. For the first time in a very long time, none of them were running from anything. They were finally home. And it all began on the coldest night of the year, when one exhausted cowboy saw a starving mother and 3 children beside a frozen road. and chose kindness before he even knew their names. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, and subscribe to Meaningful Impact 2, 1 for more emotional Western stories filled with courage, family, sacrifice and second chances. Every subscription helps us continue creating stories where one act of kindness can change an entire life.